Welcome back to Beyond the Buckets. I'm happy to have my guest today, Mitch Ford. Welcome to the program, brother.
Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Doing great, man. Excited to have you on, man, because you have a wealth of knowledge on multiple different topics, all pertaining to sport and basketball and entrepreneurship. And I just think that's great because it's a very similar lane to what I'm in. And I love talking to like-minded individuals. But happy to get your story. But before we start, why don't we start with a fun fact that even if somebody knew you, they may not even know about this fun fact about yourself.
Absolutely. Man, I really like to draw. That's probably a fun fact that almost nobody knows about me.
Really?
I just like to sit down and just kind of have a sketchbook and I'll just doodle. And I don't know what it means or where it goes. It just goes.
Wow, I love that. How long have you been drawing? Did you start when you were a kid, and what kind of piqued your interest?
Yeah, honestly, I noticed it in college. I'm not very good at it, honestly, but sometimes I just be, after a game or practice, long day, and I just find myself just doing homework, and I'd end up just doodling, and I would just keep going. And it's kind of therapeutic for me to do that.
Wow, I love that. I was just talking to a group of students, and we're doing these connection groups here on campus, which is pretty cool, where you kind of weekly check in with a group of students that you may not have ever had in your classes, but you get to talk about, certain things. And one of those things was just kind of being vulnerable and telling people what you kind of do. But one thing that I would love to do is kind of be like a cinematographer or or somebody who creates documentaries. I just love storytelling and doing that. I'm not very talented at it, but I just love the art and the craft of it. And sometimes, when I want to decompress, I'll put together different family things or sports things together and just kind of make different storylines. So I definitely hear you on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's funny because you don't have to be good at it for it to be an escape for you and for you to learn from it and be able to benefit from it.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So why don't you give everybody a little bit of background about you growing up in New York, but kind of what was your path, and maybe give me a 3-minute backstory on you and how you got to where you're at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do my best to put it in 3 minutes, but
Yeah.
yeah, I grew up upstate New York, played Division III basketball at a college called Nazareth College, go Golden Flyers. Um, spent my 4 years there. Had some opportunity to play football in college as well, but growing up playing AAU basketball was my whole life. That was what I wanted to do, and scholarships and even pursuing that stuff wasn't really that important to me. Um, so just chased my basketball dream. Ended up having a good career, and I was fortunate to, have the opportunity to really be successful. And at the end of my career, there was some opportunity to play overseas, and I just was banged up and kind of a little burnt out. And I decided to take a step away from basketball. Grew up lifelong NBA fan, so I knew I wanted to work in the NBA. I didn't even care what it was,
Yeah.
and I had a connection with the Charlotte Hornets, and I ended up getting in the front office with them. It was a year-long contract. After that was over, I was like, you know what? I want to get on the court again. I'm getting that itch back to play and to be active. And I used to train kids when I was a little younger, and I just decided to go more that route. So I ended up fortunate enough to get an opportunity with the Dallas Mavericks as a player development intern. So on the court all day, every day, just helping out with the workouts and being a practice player, kind of a dummy out there. And after that, I did the whole NBA summer league. I uh, was lucky enough to get a job at University of Buffalo as a video coordinator for the women's program, and then ended up being a director of basketball ops after my first season there. And yeah, COVID hit, and things were shaking up a little bit. But after that, it really was, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to continue down this coaching path? COVID gave everybody a lot of time to reevaluate. And my biggest thing was I wanted to be able to help people, and I wanted to be able to teach and mentor. And I realized that didn't have to necessarily be in basketball coaching per se, like I thought it did. There's
Sure.
so many ways to to lead and mentor and teach people. And just because, it wasn't at University of Buffalo, it doesn't mean I'm not doing it now. So, that all being said, led me back down to Charlotte, North Carolina. This is where I want to be. This is home. Joined the team over at SportsEpreneur, and how I really value, how I really see myself as a marketing and a small business coach. Just kind of take people who have like-minded sports backgrounds and really help them create and develop their brand through content marketing, through podcasting, and really just helping them share their story.
Right. Because like you mentioned, you are still coaching. It's just in a different capacity. And, everybody has coaches, business people, obviously athletes have coaches, even teachers have coaches where, there's leadership that is helping them put together their curriculum and things like that. So every walk of life has to have coaches. Coaches are essential business, in today's society, and what you're doing, for sports entrepreneurs is what I call it. I just think it's a fantastic thing because there's a lot of things that you need to navigate, and in order to do that, you need people that have been there and seen it from multiple different angles. And you obviously, from being a player and then on into your career as a coach, have got to see it from multiple different angles. I want to double click on one thing as we get started in this conversation. Talk about the connection that you had to try to get into the Charlotte Hornets organization. Was that somebody that you knew from childhood? Was it somebody that you knew from playing? Was it a coach that maybe connected you with this person to kind of get your foot in the door? Because what a lot of people don't understand is you're really one call away or one connection away from getting an opportunity that you would have never had because you were just open to, finding out what was out there. So tell me about how that came about with the Charlotte Hornets before we continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll touch on that this way to start. You just got to ask your network. You just have to ask. You can't be afraid to, ask a question. Worst thing is someone says no. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I had an opportunity at my college. I'm not going to name a specific name, but there's an ex-NBA coach who went to my college, and he had a connection with the head coach down at the Hornets, and that was kind of my end. I've been very lucky to build a relationship with this guy, and that was really my end. I had a 4-year track record of working hard and getting a reference from my coach, and just reached out to him and asked if he had any connections there, and so happened to work out.
Definitely. I've never really officially interviewed for jobs. Obviously, you get an interview, but I'm saying once you get that connection, you go into the interview. It's like you're being requested to interview. It's not necessarily applying. Or I would say I've never applied for a job. I've always, had a connection, and they were giving me the opportunity because that connection. And so doing really great work in whatever it is that you do, whether that be an athlete and they're able to see you every single day, put in hard work, effort, dedication, focus, and be accountable for, delivering a great product. I think that's very important. And secondly, ironically, I was just reading something online. I don't know if you saw this like last week, but Emmitt Smith talked about he was being mentored by Michael Jordan, and he reached out to Mike and said, hey, I want you to teach me about business. I want to know the ins and outs. I want to know it all. And, the premise of the story is, Emmitt asked him, hey, why didn't you offer to teach me this stuff before I asked you? And he said, you asked. And that was the reasoning why he allowed him to come in. And you hit it right on the head. And I don't know if you read that story or not either, but, that's exactly it. Sometimes you just have to ask and put yourself out there. Hey, I'm looking for an opportunity in the NBA. Do you know anybody? And what's the worst they're going to say? No. And the best thing is, kind of your situation. You get an opportunity and you're qualified and gifted and talented enough to step into that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot more to it than just asking. You obviously have to be qualified enough. You don't want to make yourself look like a fool if you're just not anywhere near qualified for what the position is. But, it really comes down to you have a network, you have this group, you have this person, whatever. It's just bouncing ideas off of them. And it's like, look, if they don't want to help you, they don't want to help you. But most people genuinely have a good heart and want to help people as long as it wouldn't tarnish their name. That's kind of the way I look at it. And I'm very philanthropic when it comes to that. I love taking calls and I love taking text messages from anybody who's a manager, anybody who's this. I probably talked to 5 to 10 people just about NBA Summer League. And they're like, hey, how do I, network out there? What worked for you or this and that? I'm like, I went there 1 year. I went there for 11 days, but it was busy and it was, a big learning experience. And I'm more than happy to share that any way I can. So, that's just kind of my approach. You just got to ask and, you'll find out that a lot of people want to share.
Definitely. So you said you spent 1 year there. What was your job duties there with the Charlotte Hornets?
Well, so I was there I was at Summer League with the Dallas Mavericks. When I was out at Summer League, it was just day by day, just being there for every game and being there for every workout that a guy wanted to have, just kind of being that resource, being on the court, just rebounding, passing, doing all that stuff to just make it all work. It was 11 days of doing that. And then anytime that I wasn't with the team, I was out there just networking and at these games and just talking to people, passing out business cards, all of that. The one thing about Summer League, it's funny because people just think Summer League and the Final Four, those are the 2 big events for kind of like coaching and jobs and this and that. And people just think that they're going to go there and just get a job. And it's just 99% of those people, that doesn't happen to. It's one of those things that you might build a relationship and in 5 years, you might have the chance to work in the same team or the same organization. And then that's when those relationships pay off. It doesn't just happen like you walk to Summer League and you walk out with a job because it's Summer League. There's a lot more to it, and it's about planting seeds. And you want to be authentic about everything you do. You don't want to just go up there and be salesy and just drop a card off and do your little 1-minute pitch and move on. You want to have, genuine and authentic conversations with these people. And you can't have those with everybody, but it's one of those things that, you just need a few people to really help you out and build that circle around you.
Right. What are some best practices that you found that worked out well being authentic when you're being authentic in these situations? Because a lot of people aren't authentic and they're just trying to basically escalate up the ladder, but like you mentioned, that's not really how it happens. But what were some best practices that you used that were maybe successful in your eyes?
Honestly, it's being selective of who you reach out to. You can't just forge connections and just make up connections with random people. If I see someone, I'm a New York guy, so a great example is a friend of mine from Summer League. He had a Cornell shirt on. And Cornell's in Ithaca, New York, and Ithaca College was in my basketball conference. So it was one of those things I was able to walk up to him and have a genuine conversation. I'd be like, look, I've been there 10 times to that town. My best friend from college went there. And it was
Right.
One of those things hey, I know the area. This is one of my favorite spots when I would go there. It's just more, it's not about, hey, what do you do? Oh, I do this. Let's connect. And it's no, let's just have a real conversation like a real person. And if there's no spark, there's no spark. But you're going to be able to tell the people that, you want to keep by your side and build that circle with. You cannot, the best people, the best entrepreneurs, the best business owners know that you can't keep every single person around. It doesn't matter. It's just about, really genuinely caring about these other people and having something that's actually tangible to talk about and connect on, not just say, oh, wow, you like basketball and I like basketball, we should be friends. It's that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
There's millions of people who like basketball. That doesn't mean that they should hire you or refer you to anything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
One of my mentors in business, her name is Cindy Smith, a phenomenal businesswoman in sales. She knows how to get into a situation where she doesn't know you and she's going to find something, some commonality that you guys both have. She had three Division I athletes, but she'll see, oh, your son played soccer. Oh, my son played soccer at Cal. Where does your son play? And just find those commonalities, and you start going down this road and saying, hey, we kind of have a lot in common. And oh, by the way, I like this person, and I want to spend more time. I want to get to know them because, like when we talked the other day, like we didn't know each other, but we
Mhm.
both were open enough to have a conversation because of a contact that we mutually had in common. And then we go down this direction. Oh, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. And it's like, oh, cool, man, this guy. And we both didn't even need anything from one another, and we still don't. But one day we might. And because we built up this rapport and this relationship, as you just mentioned, planting those seeds for later on, and something could possibly grow because we're both doing similar things with similar interests. And the overlining commonality that we both have is we want to help people, and we're both coaches in our own right. And I think that's extremely important. And the one thing that I really value about you is like you just want to help people, and if you do that, you're going to be so much further along than people that are only trying to climb the ladder themselves, because that's a lonely road to go up. And I would rather bring a lot of people with me or help a lot of people get to where they need to get to, because their path isn't my path. And
Mhm.
I'm genuinely happy for people when they do other things. One thing that you mentioned earlier on is during COVID you had time to like sit and think. So many people had opportunities to finally figure out what they want to do. I had so many friends change occupations, change jobs, and I'm excited for them because they may not be in the same realm as I am anymore, but they're doing what they want to and love, and that's what makes me happy about your journey too, man. You're doing what you actually love.
Yeah. And, I definitely appreciate you saying that. It's one of those things that I was a marketing major in college. And, one of my favorite classes, we would just watch Shark Tank and we talk about it. And I'm like, how cool is that? It's just a bunch of entrepreneurs just out here selling themselves. Like, and then these guys who are top of the top, they're just ripping it apart. And like, I was a huge Mark Cuban fan. And then crazy how 3 years later, 4 years later, I'm working for him. And I'm out there like, just an employee for the Mavericks. It was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. And, I was always super interested in the basketball part, and that was my journey. But it was like, you know, for specific reasons, I wasn't really reaching out to him too much to ask him questions. He's a busy guy, and if you're an intern, you probably don't want to be doing that and, cross too many lines there. But, just the opportunity to be in an organization that he built and how he established culture and stuff like that, it was just so interesting to me. And during COVID, I had opportunities to do some consulting and stuff like that in basketball. And I just said, you know what, I'm committed to UB. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to see it through. I want to do everything I can, like be where my feet are. But it came to a certain point where I just wanted to help people, and I wanted to be in a different location. And I knew that, I was at peace with the basketball part. Um, I don't want to say coming to an end, because I feel like it's just the beginning of a different coaching and different basketball journey. But like that part of my coaching career was over, and I was just at peace with it. And the biggest thing is, I followed what I wanted to do, and I want to work with entrepreneurs, and I want to work with like-minded people and mentor, and that's kind of where it led me today.
Definitely. Well, there's so many people that end up going on outside of coaching and still being around in that capacity. You think of a lot of the general managers, they went from playing to potentially coaching to being in a situation like Pat Riley. He coached for so many years. Now he's able to be, the director of basketball operations for the Miami Heat, or Mitch Kupchak, or Jerry West. And you can go down the line and they still have their hand in this one thing, but their role has changed over time. And the really great people in any walk of life have always been able to reinvent themselves. If it's an athlete, well, this summer I'm going to work on my 3-point shot. Once I got that down, I'm going to work on my pull-ups. I'm going to work on my floaters, runners, and you kind of go down the line of the checklist, the really great ones. And even in business, you have to continue to reinvent yourself. You may not be able to do it the way you used to be doing it, whether that be, those are antiquated ways or technology is now taken over. And I know that's a space that you guys are definitely in with your company. But there's just so many different aspects to what you can do, and just because you used to do something doesn't mean you always have to do that. Like one of my favorite rappers is Jay-Z, and from his beginning album to his last album, he completely changed. He was a completely different person, but he was still that guy in Reasonable Doubt, but he was also that same guy in 444. And I just think that's a great quality for individuals to have, is always be able to reinvent yourself, so you're always going to be relevant.
Yeah. And, every experience that I've had in coaching and in sports, I use for marketing. I use the same skills. I use my leadership skills, my social skills, all of those things, mentoring, teaching, the list goes on. And, people might say, oh, why'd you leave coaching? Or what a waste of time. You only did it for 4 years, blah, blah, blah. All this, people can say what they want, but like, all I know is those skills and those connections and everything that I've authentically grown myself, like, that's what matters. And that's what's propelling me into, having success in my career now.
No doubt. Being in these high-level organizations, whether it be the Mavericks or Buffalo or Charlotte Hornets, what did you learn, whether it be from athletes or people in these executive roles, that you are now using today with your own organization now? Was it something that you see, like the approach of an athlete, how they approach, preparing themselves to work out, like what type of mindset were they in, or the business people, how did they treat the people around them, stuff like that, that maybe you took with you and was like, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I would say in Dallas, and, this wasn't even, it was just Mark Cuban. He knew everybody's name on the sideline. Like, how cool is that? Like, he is just big. The biggest of the biggest entrepreneurs, and he knows the photographers' names and knows this and that. Like, how cool is that? And it just makes you realize, like, man, no one's too big for acknowledging people. That was one thing I really took from it. I always try to do a better job of remembering people's names now, because it was just like, that was such a profound moment. And he was just going up and say, hey, Mitch, how's it going? And I was just like, why do you know me? Like, like, I know I'm like rebounding or just around the gym, but like, that was just a really, really good feeling. And then honestly, with the athletes themselves, they all have a mindset to work hard and put the hours in. They know that, they're working, especially in the NBA, scrap clawing for a contract and this and that. So like, yeah, some guys, work harder, quote unquote, harder than others. Some people get their work in different ways, however they want to do it. But, I think the biggest thing was everyone reads and everyone is like working on their craft. Some people get so content of, oh yeah, I'm a coach. I'm a high school or lower level, like college coach. And, they just, hey, this is my offense and we run it and we just do it. And we've had success because we have better players than people. Like, I think people in the NBA and the people that I found that have the most success are really like cultivating their knowledge and their culture and all these things by reading. They're reaching out to other entrepreneurs. Maybe it doesn't even have to be in the same business. Like, they're reaching out to these people to see how they get the most out of their employees and the people around them. And like, I would say that especially with the coaches in the NBA, like, they are just brilliant. They really are. They're, some of them were ex-players and this and that, but, that knowledge came from somewhere, and a lot of them from reading and, asking questions to other coaches and mentors.
Yeah. Always on a hunt for more knowledge and ways to implement it in your style. Everything that I've ever done as a coach has been stolen from other coaches, and you just kind of put it in your own in your own vocabulary, in something that kind of fits with you and your ideals, and that's, I think, a very important thing too. I can't be Mitch Ford. I can only be me, and I can't do what you do, but I can do it in my own way and
Mhm.
find success. And that's one thing that I really like about coaches and NBA coaches too. Like, Rick Carlisle's going to Indiana now, and he's going to reinvent himself. He was there before, but he's on the path to continue to better himself and probably make Indiana pretty good, because he's one of the top five coaches in my opinion. So being under that tutelage, I think, is just extreme. You're very privileged to have that opportunity to work under Mark Cuban, under his tutelage, because top down is how the organization is run. So that's pretty cool. Talk to me about your company, SportsEpreneur. Tell me about that, and how you're actually helping these sports entrepreneurs achieve what they really want to do, with sports.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we do, it really is what it sounds like. It's where sports and entrepreneurship kind of collides. We just help people in the sports industry, sports-minded people who really just want to take that next step. We help them just kind of dive into their brand, and we just help them tell their story. I think really that's the key to everything, is help them tell their story, whether that's through a new website design, whether that's through a podcast, whether that's through a blog, social media. We just help them get to the real story. So many people have these companies and brands, and they think that marketing and social media is just one of those things. I'll just DIY it and fake it and whatever. But like, we know how to reach that real story, the one that people want to hear about. We want to get to that part about who is Chris. Like, we want to get to the core of who Chris is, and help him tell that story and cultivate his brand through that story. And I think that's the biggest thing we do. And we work with a lot of people who, the people who work with us love working with us, because they really understand, like, wow, I can't believe I didn't do it this way forever. And it's like, this is so like fun, and we're just talking about like what we care about, what we value, and oh my god, all these people they love it. Like, we're getting more clients and more referrals and more of this and that. It's like, that's just what we do, is we really help people tell their story.
So, what is your sweet spot as far as an organization? Is it a brand that maybe sell apparel? Is it a coach that does training and has teams? Is it club basketball? What is your strike zone, if you were going to put a label on one or two areas that you guys might focus on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I'm going to go pretty vague with that, honestly. I'm going to go people like who are just sports minded and want to grow their business. Like, I think that really, consolidates that into it's a big group, but that really is the target. We want people who are, they're entrepreneurs at heart, and they want to grow something. And yeah, me and you can connect right away, because we have this bond through basketball, and we can relate to each other. I can talk to you about, training guys, and you can talk to me what it's about to coach at a high school, like things that we haven't done, but we can work with each other and find a way to help each other grow and tell each other stories from that. Like, you have a different path than I've had, but we can each throw in our input on, oh wow, like I did it this way at this point in my life, or oh wow, like you have your own business and you work at the high school, and like, that's so cool. That's so entrepreneurship. Like, I work for a small, very entrepreneurial group of guys in this company, but I haven't started my own business technically. I could learn a lot about entrepreneurship from you, and there's just a million ways to go. But what really matters is, people want to get better, and we want to work with those people. We want to work with the people who are, truly entrepreneurs with that sports mindset. They can really take it to the next level.
Right. And so when somebody contacts you, what is the first couple steps that you guys take? Do you guys do like a SWOT analysis on what they're doing and how they're doing it currently, and then some goals that they may want to achieve? Like, what is the process when you guys get a new client?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to kind of what I said about being authentic, and this is kind of where it all comes together. You know, my thing is, yeah, I'm marketing and trying to grow a brand on all this, but I don't want to come off as some schmoozy, like asking sales questions like that. That's not a way to do it. The important thing to me is I want to build a relationship with these people. I want to just have conversations. I want to host them on a podcast. I want to do this. I want to do this. And I want them to tell me, yeah, you know what? Like that that podcast that you posted the other day was amazing. Like you and Chris did a really good job and you told that story really well. Like, is that something you could do for us? Like I didn't realize our website was not up to date until I heard you talk about it and saw you post that. Is that something you can help me fix? So, that's kind of my approach is, I just want to be authentic and build relationships with people and, kind of circle back, like plant that seed. Like that's what's important is building real relationships with people because people who are authentic, you want to be around and you want to talk to and they stay fresh in your mind.
Right.
And that's kind of, the bottom line for us.
Yeah, I like it. Um, so, if somebody comes to you, like, what is the process to engage? Like, are they finding you, or you guys going out to get them? Like, how does it all come about when you're looking at this? So for me, and a lot of people that listen to the podcast know that I don't do any of my social media. It's all with I would call her a friend now. She's in the basketball world. I got connected to her from somebody that used to work for Top Flight, and she played in the Pac-12, and just knows. She knows a lot about me because I just send her all my stuff. And I let her go with it, and I got that full autonomy and trust in her to basically run my social media platforms.
Mhm.
So talk to me, like, do people reach out to you, or do you guys kind of get leads from somewhere and say, hey, you reach out to companies, hey, I see what you're doing, I think we can help you and benefit you? How does that all work?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of both. It's kind of all of it included. There's certainly like I'm reaching out to people, and I was talking with our connection Todd, and got your name, and he's just said, hey, you two would really get along. Like most importantly, like you two are both basketball minded guys, and looking to grow and looking to really take it to the next level with whatever you're doing, and that's just it happened so organically. It just happened from me having a regular phone conversation with Todd and you know that's the way that I think is most beneficial. I think this foundation of relationship that we've built is going to last longer than just cold calling some people. Like I don't see us not collaborating or something within, doesn't have to be within a day, but it can be within 10 years. It doesn't matter, but it's like how can we help each other? So there's always people that are reaching out and looking to take their business to the next level, and they reach out on the SportsEpreneur website, they reach out to us directly on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all those different things. It's a combination of both, and referrals too. Like use the network that you have. People really like to work with us. Like I'm not just saying that because I work
Yeah,
here. Like
yeah,
even from before, I've seen reviews and I've seen different things, and people talk certain ways. I'm like, that's just not like these big marketing agencies that just put out whatever work and they just take your money and just churn it out. Like, no, we care. Like we want to like make this feel like a partnership, and we want to work with the people that we want to work with. That's why this whole brand is SportsEpreneur. That's why we want to work with people that are like-minded.
right.
Mhm.
uh, Talk about the founders of SportsEpreneur. um, how did you connect with them? What was their vision for this? And maybe tell that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So it started off, the CEO's name is Eric Kazimoff, and he started off in the insurance industry, and he was the parent company that we technically are is called Kaz Source, and it started off in insurance, and it got to the point where he was just, hey, I want to start creating content. I want to just build a website, and he taught himself pretty much how to do all this stuff, and people just started catching on. Like, wow, this is awesome. Like, can you do this for us? And it really just turned into the marketing agency, and then we've grown and grown and grown. Um, you know, my connection to them was one of my best friends, one of my college teammates was dating a relative of his. And I was just talking with him and he's like, you got to talk to this guy, Eric. Like, you guys are just the same. He's like, you talk so similarly about sports and, entrepreneurship and just being a business owner and this and that. And like, it's funny because my friend's always telling me, he was joking. He's like, yeah, because I have all these like ideas and I wanted to start so many businesses. He's like, yeah, this is exactly who you need to talk to. And I came into the office just to meet and whatever. And 4 hours later, we just had a conversation. It was just so natural talking about sports and leadership and just skills, life skills, growth mindset, all these things. And it just, led to where we are today.
I love that. um, there's a lot of gimmicks out there. There's a lot of gimmicky trainers and coaches and even people on social media. I'm watching this thing called it's walk ball now. It's I mean it's going everywhere right now. These people are playing football but walking and
Mm-hmm.
just juking people. And now I see it with basketball. And I talked to our baseball coach today in passing, and they're one of the top 20 teams in the country perennially. And I'm like, have you seen this? I was like, it's coming for baseball too. Watch. But there's just so many gimmicks out there. Do you have any advice to people out there to not try to go that route and just preach more substance? I know for myself, like I just want to put out positive content that may help people. I don't want to put up, is this a travel or clean or travel or stuff like that, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you might get a lot of views, but there's really no substance. Nobody gets anything out of it. They're not learning anything other than, and these moves aren't going to be able to be produced in a basketball game, because even if it is clean, they're going to call it travel all the time because they
Yeah.
just haven't seen it. And not everybody understands the rules, and if it's a FIBA rule, NBA rule, high school rule, college rule, they're all different. So the gimmicks, and there's a way to get your following up by basically enhancing it or taking steroids in one respect. Like, I've never been one to try to cut the corner on any of this stuff. Like, I want it all. I want people that really like the stuff that we're putting out there, because at the end of the day, those are the only people that matter. You can get all these bots and all these followers, but it doesn't really mean anything. So why don't you touch on a little bit about that, because I think it's a very important piece that a lot of people think, oh, because I have this following count doesn't mean that they actually would buy any of your services or products or even value what you're putting out. It's just entertainment.
Yeah. There's always going to be bad trainers. There's always going to be bad coaches. There's always going to be people in it for the wrong reasons. Everybody in their right mind who trains kids and they have a training business or whatever, they all say they're an NBA trainer, but they've never worked with an NBA player. It's just they put it on their thing so people respect them more, they gain more of a following, whatever. If you work with NBA guys and you're at that level and you're working with pros all the time, great. It's not a shot at you, but it's all these people who they say that they're a year out of college and they've never worked with a player above the high school level, and they'll say they're an NBA trainer. It's like, it's just so fake, and I think it really does show over time. Those people, they can say all they want and they can post and they can do that. This is travel this, and you'll get views and you'll get followers, but what does it lead to? People can, I guess, monetize their Instagram and be some whatever Instagram trainer or whatever, but like, that's a whole different thing than being an actual on-court player development coach and actually training professionals and training people to have an impact. Like, just from talking to you and hear about, you don't want to be gimmicky and do this. Like, yeah, it's because I've looked at your stuff. Like, you do it the right way. Like, you're doing it from, like, you're helping these kids get better. You're not just posting videos to, for people to just see your stuff that's fake, So I think, advising people to like stay away from the gimmicky stuff, like, hear the real story behind it. And that's the thing. You tell your story through your training. Like, these people who are posting these videos and just cleaner travel. Like there's no story. They're just trying to come up with things that get a lot of views because, you know, for whatever reason, whatever their incentive is. So I think people, I don't know how it's going to change, just because this view of having more followers and more views means so much to some people. Like, you know, these TikTokers, they got 80 million people following them and they watch every single post they make. But it's like that not one thing they do helps anybody. So what are we doing here? Like,
Right.
not all of it's funny, not all of it's this. It's a dance or something stupid. Like, yeah, TikTok is becoming more viral and more critical as a marketing tool than ever. But that doesn't mean that you should buy their T-shirt. like,
Right.
like I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I want to deal with people who have a real story. Like, I want to buy things that, you know, that I like and that mean something. Like, I don't want to just do something just because everyone else is doing it. And maybe, you know, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't think I am.
Yeah. And most of it's just entertainment. You know, you could find yourself deep in a rabbit hole if you go down it. Like, you know, my wife looks at the Instagram reels a lot, but it's all like parenting stuff and funny mom stuff. And these people have so many followers and so many views, millions of views, and they're not. It's just funny mom parodies. They're not like I personally don't understand. Like it is funny, and I get it, but at the same time, like it's not really helping in my mind. Maybe it helps them feel a little bit better about their situation, but for me, I don't know. I just don't get it a whole lot, and that's why I try not to consume it. Like, I try to just post and ghost. I post and try to get off. The one that I will look at is Twitter most of the time, but Instagram I try not to have more than 15 minutes a day because it just clouds your
Yeah.
mind.
And,
Uh,
and it's not, you know, content is important. Obviously, that's the whole basis of a company. It's like content is so critical, and telling your story is so important. And I find value in some videos. Like, I do believe that just humor is really important. And I get if you're an account that posts funny things, or you're a, you know, a wannabe comedian and this and that. Like, I fully understand that. It's stuff that, you know, that's fake, that's really toxic. You know, people think that these people, this is how they live, and they live this glamorous life, and they're all done up in makeup and this and that, and blah blah blah. And like that doesn't mean like that doesn't mean anything.
right.
If anybody can go to their bank and take out a ton of 20s and flash it, it doesn't mean you're rich. Like, yeah, I mean, everyone knows that. Like, those people aren't actually rich. So, but like, when you're a business and you're really trying to tell your story and you're trying to organically grow something, like, it's important to just find the real story and pour your heart out. Like, be passionate about it and like tell the actual story and the brand that you want to cultivate. Yeah, everyone can go get 1 million followers if they buy enough money for it. It's like, spend enough money to, you know, buy followers and stuff. Like, I get it, but what does that really do for you? Just so you can say you have a following? Like, no. Like, how about let's try to change people's lives? Like, let's try to take like your business and your idea, let's invest in it and make something of it.
Right. Uh, are there any books that you have read, you know, recently that have helped you kind of you know, change your approach to certain things? Like, I know for me, I tried to read 50. I'm gonna fall short of my goal, but I mean, I tried, and just, you know, you get busy. But It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad is one of my favorite books. I read that earlier on this year. And then, you know, the 4 Hour Work Week, working more efficiently. How do you do that? And those two books for me have really changed the way I approach things. One, It Takes What It Takes is really about neutral thinking. And so having neutral thoughts, not being too high or too low, and understanding that both moments could offer you some of those feelings. You can still have authentic feelings towards those, but at the same time, the neutral thoughts are going to be the ones that are going to give you a better performance overall. And then, the 4-hour work week. How are you productive? Like, just checking your email twice a day instead of having it up all the time. It allows you to only focus on that. So if we're on this podcast and I have my phone and I have my email, all these things up, I can't focus on our conversation. So I got to make sure that I remove all these other distractions and only focus on this one because I'm going to be more efficient. Now, how long does it take me to get to these emails? Well, probably not that long. It's probably a couple sentences where you can kind of respond and get through it. But at the same time, if I had my email up and I'm also trying to work on scheduling and doing this and doing that, you're not going to be great at any of them, and it's going to take you longer than if you just focused on one. So once you finish one, now you can go on to the other, but you're only focused on that moment. So has anything helped you with with the betterment of your businesses and just growth mindset overall?
Yeah, I'm becoming a more and more avid reader the older I get. I keep continuing to hear these people talking about, wow, this book did this for me and this helped me do this. And, really, like I mentioned earlier, all these people who are, the top of the game are reading and writing books. And I think the main one that really helped me cultivate some leadership skills is called the Captain Class. And it really is just about 12 different, teams. And you just got to go read the description of it because it's kind of hard to break down. But they basically take the best, 12 teams or 12 dynasties, they call them. And they say, okay, well, the 1960 to 64 Celtics, they were a pure dynasty. They won 4 titles in a row and this and that. And they talk about like what the leadership dynamic was of the team. And there's different teams for different eras and they're spread out in different categories. And they talk about individual captains on that team. And I'll go to one example. The New Zealand rugby team, I can't draw on a blank on the name, but the captain, he was just a hard-nosed, like always the one running out there getting concussions and just being just a menace. And it was just talking about the type of captain he was. And he was just like the bruiser. He was the one who led by example, like was left it all on the line. He bleeding and all this stuff. And people will just rally behind that. And that's one type of leader. And there's different types throughout the whole book, but just some of the skills and some of the things that you learn from leadership techniques it carries on in every profession. It really just it makes you like think about what type of leader you are, and then it kind of cultivates that conversation inside your mind, like, oh wow, maybe I need to do more of this, or I don't see myself doing this as much as I should, and gets those thoughts going. And then there's a few others, and the one I'm re-listening to for the third time right now is Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it's just kind of about that's a really popular one, and it's super simple, but just how money works for you and how people see money and how the mentality of a quote unquote rich dad, someone who goes and creates his life and buys all these assets versus the person who is just they might have the $100,000 job, but they spend $20,000 a year in their car and 20 on their house and this and that, and they're not really rich, because what happens when you lose that job? It's just gone, and then you have this stuff, and now you're in debt. And are you really rich? Are you actually wealthy? And it's just kind of about creating your own wealthy lifestyle. So I think those two books right now, on the top of my head, are definitely had an impact on me.
Rich Dad Poor Dad is one of my all-time favorites. Like you mentioned, and the biggest one that I remember, and I haven't read that in 10 years, but Pay Yourself.
Yeah.
Pay Yourself was one of the big things that I took away from that book, and I've implemented a lot of those principles in my own life, whether that be investments, stock market, whether that be real estate. And I've also asked a lot of questions to people that have done it before me, people that I've worked for that have done all these things. I wanted to know about it, and several years ago, I started dabbling more in the stock market. How does this work? What if you put money into this company? What happens in dividends and reinvesting and all of those things are critical to understand. And now, with blockchain, Bitcoin, and all these blockchain currencies, it's mind blowing what actually is happening right now, and
Yeah.
you kind of got to stay in front of it. But it's been super interesting trying to educate yourself, and like I've had several friends talk to me about how Bitcoin works, and we've had deep conversations. Well, is it an asset, or is it just is it an asset, or is it currency, or is it both? And it's just fun, different conversations to dive into, and you see kind of how volatile the stock market can really be, and if it's good, it's good. Sometimes it's bad, but overall, the stock market has always continued to rise, and that's one thing that a lot of these business people have told me, and I've seen for myself too with my own investments. So, yeah, I mean that's a fantastic book. I'm glad you brought that up because I haven't thought about that book in a while, but so many of those principles still stick with me.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can always get better with your financial education, and you can always grow, and you can take things from a book that was written in 2002, I think it was. That book's been around forever, but that doesn't mean the lessons aren't any less or more valuable. Like, they are just, bottom line is they're valuable to the people who want to seek and grow. And if you can read that book and you don't take anything from it, then I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's just one of those books that it's such a great opportunity, and just a refresher, like how the real world actually works, like how stuff out there, how people are, running their own companies. And, the one little brief story from that early on, they're, it was Mike and Rob, I believe they were, and they like are working for Mike's dad, and he's the rich dad, and he pays him under minimum wage. And there's the big, he's complaining about it and this and that. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, this is what it's like when you don't ask for more money, or when you don't ask for a higher wage, and like, you'll just be treated like that. And, so many like real life examples that so many people just take these jobs and say, oh yeah, I'm good with this, and that's fine. And then they just get, put on more responsibility. They don't ask for anything. They don't do this. They're just kind of a cog, and they know that you're replaceable no matter what that job is. And just it's so interesting, like hearing the mindset from someone who is a business owner and collects these assets versus this person who, not a shot, I love teachers and I want to be a professor someday, but like the poor dad was a teacher in that book, and he was just talking about like, yeah, he did this and had his mortgage and was always in debt and this and that. And he was the poor dad because he had the poor man mindset. It wasn't
Right.
even about how much money he had.
Yep. And you're worth what you can negotiate. And a lot of the NBA players are doing that now, and you have to provide a lot of value. And if you do that, you can basically put out what you want to make. And if you're worth it, then you'll get paid that. And then, if you're not, then you got to find other alternatives around that. So say you like teaching, which I do, I teach a couple classes per day, but I have other things that I have to do because Silicon Valley is not easy to live, raise two kids and family, and have a home mortgage and all of that. Like, it's really difficult to do that. And so you have to do other things, and be willing to do other things, and you also have to know when to say no. If you don't want to do something, then just, you don't have to do it. And it's okay to kind of, to do what you think is best for you and your family, and not what everybody else wants you to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just the bottom line is, not everyone is going to create this Fortune 500 business. Like, it's not possible, but that doesn't mean it's not a success or is a success or whatever. Like, there are so many people out there that are changing people's lives. Like, I don't know one basketball trainer or business that's in the Fortune 500. Like, but that doesn't mean that, they're not successful, or they're not making an impact and not changing lives and all these things and educating. Like, what really matters. Like that's success. Like just because it's not $1 million or $10 million a year, doesn't mean it's not successful.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you don't have to be, you don't have to be a millionaire to be rich in your life, and
Not at
that's
all.
something I think is extremely important for people to understand is, whether you have $1 million or not, that doesn't equate to happiness, because there's so
Mhm.
many people that do not have money and they're extremely happy, and then
Yeah.
vice versa. There's a lot of millionaires that really don't like their life, and
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
I
sad.
posted something. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day, and I got asked the question. If there's any one person that you could go out to dinner with, dead or alive, who would it be? Like that
Hmm.
classic question.
Yep.
And my answer has changed so many times throughout the years. And like right now, it's like, being a basketball fan, oh man, like Kobe Bryant, like, geez, like that would have been just incredible. Or Michael Jordan, or this and that. And I was thinking about like Robin Williams. Like
Hmm.
he's a guy who, you know, basically took his life early because he was just depressed. But he was this bigger than big comedian and famous person. And he's depression, and he's richer than rich. And what does that mean? He was depressed and he was just upset his whole life. And like just being able to talk to somebody who was at this pinnacle of, he was probably a top 3, 5 comedian in the world,
Right.
and then being able to talk to that person about their mindset and why they're upset, and like why why they're depressed and why that's not fulfilling to just have all this money and this and that, and like the day-to-day life. Like I think it would just be so interesting to talk to somebody who can see into that life, and kind of like ground you a little bit. Like, yeah, everybody wants to grow, and well, not everybody, but a lot of people want to grow and take that next level and get that next paycheck, and grow and just build your portfolio financially. And it's like, yeah, but at what cost? That guy died. I mean, he literally killed himself essentially. Like, so I was just trying to bring that up just because like it's not always greener on the other side, but like you just have to find that green in your own life.
Right. And especially with a lot of men, we try to compartmentalize a lot of our feelings, and so men commit suicide at a far greater rate than women, and it's because, well, in my opinion, it's because we're trying to hit these check marks in our life, and not all the time is that something that's going to be beneficial for our longevity here on this earth. And sometimes you have to rest and relax, and sometimes smell the flowers while you're here, because we put so much pressure, extra pressure, that doesn't need to be there on us a lot of the time. And it's just unfortunate that men have to do that. But I think we're in an age now where vulnerability is being expressed more. It is actually a sign of strength when you're able to do that. When athletes can talk about their problems or issues or mental health issues. I just watched the documentary, the Untold story on the Malice at the Palace. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I just watched it this weekend.
Me too. I mean, kids went down for a nap. I got had an hour and 15 minutes or so. Watched that. It was unbelievable. But,
Unbelievable.
you can see that these guys, they were painted this and that, but now they were finally able to tell their story, like you've been talking about this whole time, and it just painted it in a different light, because you only saw what the media portrayed it to be at that time. And so you can see those guys are still hurt after this, and that happened almost 20 years ago. I think it was like 15, 16. But it's just crazy to see, and those guys are still hurting over this, and it's all because of how it was portrayed. And they were portrayed as the bad guys, which, I don't know how many people wouldn't have reacted that way if it went down the same way.
Yeah.
I likely would. If I've got something thrown at me or somebody's running up on me and you're in fight or flight mode, well, you're probably not going to run away. You're probably going to go to it if you're somebody like you or me. So just
Yeah.
just crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that documentary is such a good example of telling the story, because there's no way. I think Malice of the Palace, before watching that, I just think, oh yeah, that's someone threw something at Ron Artest and he ran up there and punched him in the face, and then he punched the guy in the court. That's what you think. That's what the media framed, and that's that's too bad. But then you hear, the story about Jermaine O'Neal, and people are saying like all this stuff got dropped or whatever it was, and it was because he was just acting in self-defense basically. And it's like that borderline didn't ruin his career, because he ended up, in the NBA for 15 years and this and that. But I mean, everyone was saying he was in trajecting to be the best power forward in the NBA.
Right.
And then, he obviously didn't meet up to that. And maybe that's a lot of that's mental. And maybe that's a lot of it was, the pressure put on him and he just couldn't handle this and that. But, that was 2004. And that was 17 years ago. That's a long time to suppress that thing. And he just got the chance to tell the story. And I know I respect him more as a basketball fan from hearing that story.
Right.
And I can't feel for him, obviously, because I have no idea what that feels like. But it was you get some insight of these people's lives and who they are. They're not bad people.
Right.
And that's what's portrayed.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
It was crazy. Hold on. Sorry to go back to that. It was
Yeah.
crazy hearing what those newscasters and stuff were saying in the media. I'm like, I couldn't even imagine if something like that was said nowadays.
I honestly started tearing up a little bit because it was just, I couldn't imagine if that was being said about me or one of my loved ones, or one of my teammates, where you're just trying to help them get out of that situation. For Reggie Miller and all those guys, they were just trying to get them out of there, and it was all sparked by a fan that threw something which you should never do. It's not like they're not animals in a zoo. You pay to go watch them and entertain you. Fine, but that doesn't give you the right to say whatever you want to say and put your hands or throw something at them. That's assault right there. So anyway, man, this has been a great conversation. As we wrap it up, tell everybody where they can follow you, follow SportsEpreneur, all of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Chris, again, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you having me on. You can follow me on Instagram, it's M Ford9, LinkedIn, just Mitch Ford, and then go check out SportsEpreneur. Just go to sportsepreneur.com, just how it's spelled right here. And then KazCM is the content marketing company, so it's KAZCM.com. Check us out. Like I said, we're really just trying to help people take it to the next level. So, give us a follow, and we'll do some good work together.
Thank you. We'll put everything in the show notes, but really appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.